स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतार वरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः. I have been asked to speak on this sloka. This sloka is used every day, and I take it for granted that you all know the meaning of it. The language is simple and just the expressions are familiar. Dharma Sthapaka, Sri Ramakrishna has been described in brief by no personality other than Swamiji himself, saying that he is the establisher of religion, he is the embodiment of all religions, and he is the supreme incarnation. These are the three expressions, three phrases are used for describing Sri Ramakrishna and his essence. Now to begin with the first expression, Dharma Sthapaka. It is usually seen from a history that a religion sometimes declines, go on declining, and then when it has come to the lowest level, as it were, there is a revival. And for that revival there is the instrumentality of a conspicuous spiritual person. The personality which is attributed to be the originator of the revival. When there is the downward progress of religion or religiousness of mankind, then it goes on going down and down, as it were, until there is a fresh wave of spirituality which not only stops that downward progress but gives a new push, as it were, to the collective spiritual life of a nation or the world in general. This has been the fact observable through long periods of history. Now when there is a revival, that revival may be limited to a particular place, a particular race of mankind, or it may involve human humanity in general. It's very difficult to ascertain from the past history as to whether such decline is spread over the whole of the world or not. We do not know. But in the life of a nation, it is definitely observable that sometimes, like individuals, the collective life of a nation undergoes such transformations, shows this characteristic of collective loss of spiritual value, and again the revival of it. When that revival takes place, as I told you, there is a very effective personality is observed who just turns that decline to again further arising, awakening. It is our conception that the great personality who turns that trend is called an avatar. This belief in avatar is common to many people, many races, and particularly Indian mind is full of this idea that the destiny of the world is guided by the Supreme Being, Ishvara, and it is His will that sometimes, because of which sometimes there is decline, and again there is a change, or the understanding of the values more clearly, appreciating the values more clearly. Now that is, in our case, at least in India, we have seen historically this phenomenon happening again and again. It is a sort of crisis of values. We go on losing that spiritual value and then become gradually more and more materialistic or less and less appreciative of the spiritual value, until there is a rise of a great personality. And that personality is unique because he brings in such a spiritual force that it is effective in changing the course of the world or course of the nation. It is often described in the Puranas. The conception of avatar is a Puranic conception. You will not find in the Vedas this idea of an avatar. There are, of course, mention is made of rishis, very powerful rishis sometimes. But we do not know whether there is anywhere any mention of an incarnation of God. In the Puranas we find descriptions at length on the avatars. In the Puranas you will mostly find like this: the world is full of sin and life becomes impossible then. Religious men suffer because of the prevalence of irreligion. They are persecuted, and the people lose faith in spiritual life. Now, when such a thing comes to the greatest depth of degradation, it is then time for God to bring up, to incarnate himself and bring about a change. In the Puranas it is stated that Brahma, the creator, is approached by the earth, Prithvi. Prithvi approaches Brahma, seeking redress from that grief of irreligion. And Brahma approaches Vishnu to bring about a change, and Vishnu promises to be born and change the trend. You will find this expression in many Puranas in various ways. Now maybe this is a metaphorical expression. Anyway, this is what is supposed to be the truth. And then as Vishnu promises, he is born in some very pious parent's house, and then he gradually manifests his power, spiritual power, which brings about the change. Now therefore he is called establisher of religion. When religion declines, then some great spiritual force comes and manifests itself, and then the change is brought about. Now when God incarnates, we say God incarnates, that God takes the form of a being, whether human or something. That form has got a birth. It has got a particular career, and then it comes to an end also, physically. Why Vishnu is approached? First of all, Brahma, being the creator, the created beings just appeal to Brahma. You have created us and we are in a very bad condition. Now help us to change our condition. Then Brahma opposes Vishnu, Vishnu the protector. Vishnu maintains the creation. Brahma creates and Vishnu maintains the creation, preserves the creation. And then Vishnu has to do his duty as maintainer of the created world, and this can be done only by his giving a push to the religious life of the nation or of the world, whatever. It is said as of the world in the Purana. We do not know very clearly whether it is true about the whole world. With our limited experience, we see this happening in individual races. And therefore, in part, that is what happens in the life of the whole universe, as it were. Now, this is Sthapaka, establisher of religion, is the avatar. Sri Ramakrishna is described by Swamiji as an avatar who establishes religion. In the Gita, you know very famous passage, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyutthanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijamnam. Whenever religion declines and adharma becomes predominant, then God creates himself. Why? Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya duskritam dharma samasthapanarthaya sambhavami juda juda. I appear in various yuvas to establish religion, dharma samasthapanarthaya, for establishing or re-establishing religion. The effect of which is the sadhus, the devotees, those who are pious people, they suffer, and those who are sinful, who are irreligious, they become prominent, and God incarnates to just change the course, this course. That is why he establishes religion, and thereby the sadhus are protected. That is, those who have got that sort of attitude, who are pious in life, they become again safe in their spiritual pursuit. Paritranaya sadhuna and vinashaya duskritam, to destroy the evildoers. That evildoers may be actually destroyed. In Puranas, you know, God kills Asuras in that way. Or the evil tendency is gradually overcome in the collective life. So that is the role one incarnation plays in the spiritual life of a nation. So he is a sthapaka or establisher of religion. Sri Ramakrishna, with his appearance, he changed that tendency among people, particularly among Indians, you can say, in the collective life of our nation, a change from the materialistic to the spiritual. But that change does not take place as a sudden event. It starts in a small in the form of a small spark, as it were. Then gradually it becomes a big flame, and the whole nation is pushed in other direction, in the spiritual direction. That is what Sri Ramakrishna has done according to Swamiji. The religious experiences of Sri Ramakrishna changed the course of events in our country. And we do find that at least we can clearly see in our collective life there is a change. Many people get bewildered that how can we know that there is a change? That doubt comes in the mind. Swamiji says Satya Yuga began with the birth of Sri Ramakrishna. When a yuga is not to be measured by just the days and years, it means a long time that is taken for either the gradual decline of religion or again the revival of religion. It is nothing sudden, like a cataclysm where suddenly it changes. No. It is only a gradual manifestation of the change. And definitely we can be convinced that the change has started and growing in momentum. That is why we will find everywhere there is a sort of awakening. There is a tendency to just probe into the matter, to be conscious of the decline and to stop this process of decline. There is an awareness, but that awareness will gradually, it is believed, lead to the actual manifestation of the change. So the process has started. That is what is meant by this beginning of Satya Yuga. The process has started. That is what Swamiji says, and that is what we believe. But nothing can be actually demonstrated on the scale of the whole life of the nation. But there is an awareness definitely, and that awareness began with Sri Ramakrishna, I should say, or maybe even with the events that took place before the birth of Sri Ramakrishna. The awakening was coming, as it were. The world was preparing to receive the birth of the great personality. And then with the birth, the change starts more and more vigorously as time goes. Which started as a small spark in one place, gradually gains in dimension, in proportion, in force, and then the transformation becomes more and more visible to an ordinary observer. Now that is why Sri Ramakrishna has been said, the sthapaka of religion, establisher of religion. From Sri Ramakrishna we came to understand that God realization is the aim of life. It is from his example that we know how this God realization can come to us, how we can achieve it by means of our sheer yearning of the heart. Now that is how Sri Ramakrishna starts that course, as it were. And then Sarvadharma Swarup. This much is, I think it will suffice for showing that he is the establisher of religion. Through his experience and through his teachings. More by his very physical presence than by the teachings. The teachings were heard by only by a few people, but the vibration went on spreading, even without anybody knowing it from one's own experience, but the vibration was there. The movement, the change, the catastrophic change is there. And then Sarvadharma Swarup, that you know from the experience of Sri Ramakrishna and the experience of the people who came in contact with him, that we can understand he is the embodiment of all religions. Sri Ramakrishna practiced different religions himself and realized the truth of them. Not of one religion on one system only, but the various systems. Not only the various systems followed by the Hindus, but others also, like Muslims and Christians. Sri Ramakrishna experienced their path of progress to God and realized that they also are proceeding towards that one ultimate experience of the divinity, which is the goal of all the different systems, different paths. Now that is not merely a theory. The disciples of Sri Ramakrishna had that experience, as has been narrated by them. Mathur Babu had the vision that Sri Ramakrishna appeared to him as Mother Kali and Bhagavan Shankar. He saw it with his own eyes, and then naturally he believed. Then you know, the devotee who was that Vaishnavite devotee, who was the worshipper of the Ram Lala, how he experienced the Ram Lala to come out from Sri Ramakrishna and march into him again and again, just convincing that worshipper of Ramchandra that Sri Ramakrishna and the Ram Lala were identical. Then the devotee of Urmani, Gopalarma, she experienced her ideal, namely Bala Gopal, to often merge into Sri Ramakrishna and again come out from him. And then Gopal was convinced that Gopal and Sri Ramakrishna were identical. In this manner, expressions are there in various places of different devotees experiencing his or her ideal in Sri Ramakrishna. Then there were Muslims, there were Christians who took Sri Ramakrishna to be their ideal. Now that is how Sri Ramakrishna has been experienced by people as the goal of their system, goal of their path. That is their ideal. In this manner, Swamiji has generalized that he is Sarva Dharma Swarup. He is the ideal. He is the embodiment of all religions. Now this much we can understand, but the last thing, Avatar Varishtha, why Swamiji expresses that idea. Every avatar is a manifestation of the divine. Every avatar is an incarnation of God. And as such, there should not be any comparison among them, one being higher, the other lower. Why Swamiji says Sri Ramakrishna Avatar Varishtha? Now in every avatar we find some expression of the divine power for the regeneration of mankind. And according to Swamiji, that power has been manifested in Sri Ramakrishna in a degree which is unprecedented. That is comparing avatar with avatar. Though every avatar is an incarnation of God, as we have the belief, the usual belief, but there are different manifestations of power. Some avatars manifested greater powers, others less. Some had greater impact over the world, others less. And Sri Ramakrishna is supposed to have the greatest impact on the modern world, in comparison with which the stature of the other incarnations become only dimmed. Now that is what Swamiji estimates, and that is up to you to just ascertain the truth of it. Though it is manifestation of divinity, but in Sri Ramakrishna the manifestations are so glowing, so great, so vast, so multi-dimensional, and also so very extensive that others become only small dots, as it were, in comparison with Sri Ramakrishna's effect that we can see at present. There may be various causes for this. The world has become an impact entity, a sort of integrated entity, as it were, because every part affects every other part nowadays, because of our close connection with the other parts of the world. So the ideas of Sri Ramakrishna have traveled to all parts of the world or very extensively. Whether Sri Ramakrishna is known by name or not, the ideas have traveled and found access in different parts of the world. That is the predominant talk of the times, this kind of harmony of religions, this kind of belief that we are all creatures of the same Creator, the same force is guiding us, and in this manner we are coming closer and closer together, being more and more related to ourselves, to others. Now that is why Sri Ramakrishna, according to Swamiji, is considered to be a unique manifestation, even from the standard of avatars. That's a great assertion, and most of us have got to take it only as an act of faith, unless we ourselves go on judging by the events of the whole world. If we are capable of that, all right. Otherwise, we take it from Swamiji, and we can understand from observation of our surroundings that there is much truth in that statement. Now that is why he is called Avatar Varishtha. Now these are again statements which may be taken as an act of faith, but which has to be understood by our personal observation. The more we are capable of doing that, the more we shall be deeply convinced about the truth of what Swamiji has said. And it is for the world to judge through the test of time to what extent Swamiji's description of Sri Ramakrishna was true. I think this is enough for me. If I go on talking, that will be again overstepping my time. After this topic, to speak about the old days, good old days of our organization, will be just changing more from the serious to the frivolous. But if you like, I can just narrate to some extent. The ideas will be very catching for you, because the changes did not take place all of a sudden. We sat together and decided that it will be like this from tomorrow. Not that. It is a gradual change. And when we remember the old days and see around us the present condition, naturally the change is a very, should I say, a very startling one. Take it as you like, but the change is very, apparent, obvious. Take for instance, we never had the good fortune of seeing so many white young entrants in this organization before. There used to be only a few people among us whites, mostly the sannyasis, the Garudas were there. Only a few dots of white here and there. And now you have become the majority, not the minority. But take care of that term majority and minority. We shall, as minority, we shall claim special privileges. And if you try to vote us down, we shall say it is a brute majority. We know the new brahmacharis used to be only few and far between, not so common. And the door was not easily thrown open to them either. We had to knock and knock. And only after our persistent efforts, the door was gradually opened to us. Now we have opened the door as all over. So come all ye, not who are heavy laden, but come ye who like this life, to experiment with this life. We allow them to come and make experiment also. Sometimes we say, come and stay with us for some time, and then you will see whether it will suit you, and we also will see whether you will be just fit for the organization. That manner, experimental. At that time there was no such thing. Admission was not so difficult. No age bar, no educational qualification bar. All these are not known to us. We came at any age and with any amount of education, provided only one thing was tested, whether we were serious to take this life. And I don't know, the disciples of Sri Ramakrishna had different eyes. What they saw in us we don't know. But worthy or unworthy, we have been accepted by them. So those days were very different. Many people had to strive for a long time to get admission. And then what was the condition here? As Swamiji and other disciples said, the life of Varanagar was so austere that even a ghost will run away. Bhoot pai is that. So austere life that you have read at least. And we have seen some of it, not the whole. They said there were only a few dhotis, and whenever one had to go out, you would put on that. And inside, they would almost go naked, stark naked, mind you. And sometimes they would condescend to have copino. Now that was the life. And what food? Usually the few things that they got in that deserted house, a haunted house, some vegetables, some green herbs, and then rice, procured with difficulty and boiled, and they took that. That also not even 2 times in a day. That was the condition. Don't be afraid, we are not going to introduce that again. But that was the condition. We have not seen that ourselves. When we came, it was more settled down. We had the courses, as you know. Sri Ramakrishna used to, he says, I am not a person to practice austerity. I want to take 5 courses with my rice. So like that, now we have 50 courses. Then other amenities also are like that. They have increased. To such an extent that now, whether the ghost will answer or not, you will most of you run away. Very hard labor one has to do. There were only a few servants. Even then, when we came, there were some servants. Cook was there, and a few servants who had to be looked upon as assistants. We were supposed to do everything by ourselves. Because we could not do it, we were provided with a few assistants. You know, sometimes that cook would go away. Then the cooking also had to be done by us. Sometimes it happened once, a cook was found to be a man of bad character, and with great enthusiasm he said, we don't want such cook. He was driven away. Then 1 day, 2 days, 3rd day, our tongue was coming out. So he said, this will not do, find out somebody. And then we did not go into his private life so much. And I was again, some cooks were again engaged like that. It was very bad time those days. And then the area was not so big as you have now, just less than half or about 1/3 maybe. And then we had to do the garden work ourselves. We had to dig, we had to plant, we had to water, not from pumps, but drawing water from the river with buckets. And that was back-breaking job. There was no toilet like this at present. We have got now, many of us have got attached baths, attached toilets. No question that the whole jungle was our toilet. Behind all these portions are jungles and marshy lands. Many of us had to just be satisfied with that only. There was a latrine, but there used to be a long queue. And for that latrine, the water that was kept, it was kept in a reservoir, a system. The water had to be drawn from the river and put into it, and then sometimes in the morning you go and find there is no water there, it has all been used up, finished. So you have to carry water from the river and again fill it. For gardening, the same water has to be drawn. And food, in those days, we never thought of what quality is there. It was only enough if we could fill our stomach with it. Once in a day, and twice in a day. Noon meal and night meal. As for breakfast, we used to have our breakfast with pure water. And then the afternoon tea also was again another supply of water. And then at night, of course, we could fill our tummy with that food. That was enough. But quality was what it was. Same thing, mostly pumpkin and some potatoes also were there, but mostly pumpkins, because that was the cheapest available thing. In the Bhandara, there used to be big pumpkins hanging to last for the whole year. And once before we came, Swami Bhuteshananda got tired of that sort of curry. So once he got some money from Calcutta, brought 10 rupees from Calcutta and gave to the Swami in charge of the kitchen, Swami Bhuteshananda. Gave him that money, 10 rupees. Prepare something to change the taste. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, nothing happened. Then he got angry and said, give me back that money. So the money was returned. And he brought from Calcutta. How he brought, I do not know. Because in those days to get things from Calcutta would be very difficult. He was not strong enough to carry any heavy load himself. So somehow managed. Brought some cauliflower and some such thing. I said, now prepare this. Then our old grandmother, disciple of Swamiji, he was assistant kitchen manager. And Bhuteshananda was the kitchen in charge. So grandmother asked Bhuteshananda, shall we prepare this and the pumpkin, etc. This time no pumpkin business, only this good food will be there. Then Siddhanta heard and wrote, no, what is daily course that will be there, and over and above that this extra. But then we have to get that extra oil also. So somehow it was managed. And that was those days. Food was like that. And then in this rainy season, it was extremely malarious those days. So there will be so many people down with malaria. One of our Swamis, Keshav Maharaj, was here. Not this Keshav, older Keshav Maharaj. He used to say, when the rainy season will come and we shall have payasam, that ladle food, it used to be served with a spoon. And then that spoon was dipped in the pot, but when it came to the plate, it was only a drop. They are expert people to distribute. Like that. It was difficult, no doubt, but we enjoyed that. The comparison was, I see, remarkable, because we came not all from rich people's house, but middle class people mostly. And even middle class people could not tolerate this kind of food. So that was what was available here. And we know this is what we have. So no question of grumbling. In that way, the food was there, the hard labor was there, and then Of course, we are free to devote our time to meditation, etc. The workload was not as much as we have now. The hard work is there, but then the other work, the table work, that was practically nil. There was only one person entrusted with keeping accounts, with management, and also he was in charge of the library. One man has to do all these things. Correspondence also. You wonder how they could manage it. But naturally, the load also was not as heavy as we have now. And then don't think we are all very goody fellows. We knew how to fight also among ourselves. Now you cannot imagine that. Actually sometimes we would come to blows with each other. But then after that it will be forgotten. Just as brothers in a family do sometimes. And we were rather crude in our life in those days, not so much polished life. We were crude people that way. But even then, there was that good intention was always there. That idea was always there that we belong to a family. So the question of any harboring of ill feeling did not arise at that time. Then details there are so many that it is already over 4. Once I described in our monks' conference, and they were so much interested that there was no time was over, then he said next day it should be continued. So we don't go into the details like that now. And don't think it was all, say, good old days. The good old days are there. As they say, when Swami Bhuteshananda used to sing, good old days, when stealing was an easy job and father was a boy. Good old days we were there, but then things have changed. We have become more polished and sophisticated also. Naturally, this goes on. Education, as I told you, there was no any kind of uniform education expected among us. Everybody could know a little, read or write a little, but they did not go beyond, say, a few forms. Not to speak of that matriculation or IABA or MA, those things are only very rare they were. But then somehow we found the people were intelligent. They could manage things well, do administer well. In relief work, we had to do so much of physical work, but then we were supposed to be doing very good work, as people used to just recommend our things. I know once I was in the relief camp when the district magistrate of Bankura came and visited our place. He was an Englishman, ICS man, and he was charmed by the system that we had been following, with forms, etc., that we used to keep record of our work. He called his officers and said, you take note of this and try to copy some of them. Just imagine, even in those days, our work was appreciated. So, though we are not educationally very much advanced, intellectually we were not very inferior. That much we can say. And the scope of study, that was only very limited. There were some who used to specialize by their individual efforts. There was not much of enthusiasm among the people to go on, become scholars. They thought it was only a sort of ambition in one's life which is harmful for sadhu life. So there was no scope also, I think. It was first time in Delhi Math that myself and another were entrusted with that study work as best as we can, and our workload was reduced so that we could give more time to that. But then workload was reduced, but that does not mean that we were allowed to just indulge in our luxury of reading for a long time. There was no light. No light, only here and there will be some hurricane lanterns. One light was there in the staircase going up in that old moth building in that inside, just leading to the Swamiji's room, just in the middle landing. There used to be one light, and we used to go and sit there in the evening. And then we had to give sufficient time to that meditation, and that sufficient time had to be given. There was not much time left. And after food, there was no light, so no question of study at night. In daytime, work had to be done, and we could very rarely snatch a little time for study. Our study began at 2. Our teacher, who was a Pandit, he stayed here at the Math, and he used to start classes at 2. And then at 4, again work had to be begun. So classes were not continued beyond that. And once I was asked to take class for the juniors. Juniors means who were my contemporaries. And they would be all lying in their bed at the resting. I would just pull them from the bed, bring them together, all friends, and then start Gita or something. Why is that? And you know, when we were given that privilege, there was one Swami, very senior Swami. Every trustee meeting he will say, this boy is doing nothing, you send him somewhere. What he is doing is simply reading. What is the use? You send him somewhere. There is so much need for work. It was Swami Shuddhananda who used to protect me always. No, he will be here. He will be just giving time for study. But then, even then, though people thought we were not doing any work, we had been doing work. But at the same time, I am very thankful to Swami Shuddhananda that he used to just keep us for study. He encouraged that. Swami Shivananda Maharaj particularly gave much encouragement. Like that, the details are too many, that will not be, it will be interesting, but that will be unnecessary, killing time. So I stop here, it is 4:15, then there will be others who will be quarreling with. You know, that old time, Maharaj was sitting and talking, and the Swamis were all around him, And Baburam Maharaj came and complained, Maharaj, these boys are all sitting here and no work to be done, that there is none to do this work, none to do that work. He complained. But Maharaj was in a different mood that day. Baburam, these boys have come for just improving their spirituality. They have not come to do that kind of job. So if they devote some time for that, we should not grudge that. And then he said, go and begin work, otherwise how the work will go on, like that. So both sides were there. But then difficult time those were. No more, it is already 4:15.